Hello, my name is Nigel Semmence. I am the Contingency Planning and Science Officer for the National Bee Unit, and today I'm going to give you an update on the Asian hornet. This will include where to get information from, an update on the sightings and nests so far in the UK, and a summary of the last 2 nest outbreaks and some sightings this year. There is plenty of information available, and the easiest place to start looking is on the National Bee Unit Bee Base site at www.nationalbeeunit.com. This includes much information, including alerts that your association can sign up to the RSS feed and receive directly to their website. Also, if you are signed on to Bee Base as a beekeeper, you will receive alerts from us if outbreaks occur close to you. On the Asian hornet pages, there is loads of information, including firstly the ID guide, which shows on the front page how to recognise Asian hornet, and on the back page the commonly misidentified insects that look very similar. We also have a poster that you can get in A3 or A4 size and laminated or not, and this can be used in risk points like ports or ferry terminals and be put up to help make the public aware. And again, it contains links on how to report that I'll talk about in a moment. We've also got plenty of articles and papers on the website, as well as details on how to report. There's also 2 PowerPoint videos. First one on biology, so I'm not going to cover the biology today, just give you an update on the current situation, and then also the nest analysis in the past to make you aware of what we do on that front. There's also historic information on sightings and nests that give you the total numbers and rough locations, and that's updated annually. Additionally, there are plenty of images of Asian hornets and nests for you to peruse. All sightings reported in the UK go through the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and they triage them for us. They have 3 ways of reporting, and this is sort of in order of preference. First way is the Asian Hornet Watch app, which you can download onto your phone in iPhone or Android form, an online recording form that you can use, and an alert email. They receive up to 10,000 alerts every year. Most of them are not Asian hornet, and about 50% of them come with a photograph. That's then clearly identified by the entomologists at UKCEH, and the people who send it in get a nice email back saying thank you very much, this is a European hornet, or whatever it may be. There are a few that come through that are clearly Asian hornet, and they are triaged through to the MBU, and we then send out a team of inspectors, and we'll talk about responses in a moment. There is a remainder in between those where there isn't a clear photograph, and the description maybe matches, maybe doesn't, but they get an email that says we haven't got enough information here, please try and take a photograph, or contact your local Asian hornet team, which is your local beekeeper association normally, and I'll talk about them towards the end of this talk and how they can help with confirming sightings. As I said, we've got about 100 trios through to the MBU each year, and we have about 4 confirmed Asian hornets per year since 2016, and so far we've had 2 in 2022, both in Essex, and I'll talk about those later on. The Asian Hornet Watch app has recently been updated, and this includes some new features. Most importantly, it includes 2 new insects, 2 of the most commonly misidentified insects on there. So on the front page you can choose whether to go into reporting a lead, or you can look at pictures and more information on each of the insects. In this case, what's now been added on to Asian hornet, European hornet, wood wasp and hoverflies is the median wasp and dark giant horsefly, and there are loads of images of each one in there, including with the Asian hornet photographs of nests, both the primary and secondary nests, that you can use to help you in the identification process. You can now navigate to the location of the sighting using satellite images and open layers. That will just make the process far smoother to report a sighting. And there is a quick link to the government pages on confirmed Asian hornet sightings to make you aware of them in your area. And all in all, the whole thing has been modernised. Where would you see Asian hornets at this time of year? Well, mainly on flowering plants is the key place to look, and they'll either be feeding on them directly themselves, or they'll be feeding on other insects like wasps, hoverflies that are feeding on the flowering plant. Most common flowering plant that we see on at this time of year is obviously ivy, which is out in large numbers at the moment and attracts a huge array of insects. All three of these photographs here are photographs from the UK from different outbreaks, and give a good example of how easy it is to spot an Asian hornet when compared to other insects. And I'll draw your attention back to the guide and make sure you get hold of one of those fact sheets to help you with identification. It can also be found at this time of year on fruit, both on the tree and fallen on the floor. And again, it can be either feeding directly on the fruit or feeding on other insects on the fruit. It can also be found on trees or woods, especially branches that are broken off from trees, where they collect the sap along with wooden material like paper that can be scraped off from fence posts, sheds and such like. Interestingly, as I said, they mainly can be found on fruits and collecting other insects, for example, but they can also be found on carrion. So the meat, if you like, that can be fed to their young can either be in the form of the muscle in the thorax of an insect, or a lump of a dead rabbit, or a bit of fish, or the such like. Additionally, they can be found in front of beehives, doing exactly the same with our bees, and collecting bees and taking them back to the hives, to the colony as well, to the Asian hornet colony. How do you monitor for Asian hornet? There's a fact sheet on BeeBase that shows you all the details of this, but it's not a very complicated process. We tend to use a bait called Trap It, which works very, very well, but you can use almost anything, beer or orange juice with added sugar. Anything that attracts wasps will also attract Asian hornet, because they may well come to the wasps. We don't use, in general, for monitoring, closed traps that killing traps, if you like. So we have a number of different open dishes that you can use, or you can make a jam jar like in the bottom right hand image here, with the lid on, preferably a plastic lid with a hole in it, a bit of J-cloth, and put your Satira in the bottom, and it will wick up and attract in your insects, including the Asian hornet. And if you set these up for a few days at this time of year, you'll start to see loads of wasps coming to and from them, and then if Asian hornets is visiting, you should hopefully see them when you have a look. So far in the UK, we've had a total of 10 sites that have had Asian hornet. They're all listed here, from 2016 Tetbury being the first one, all the way through to Ascot and Portsmouth being the last. Ascot and Portsmouth being the last two. There was in fact a total of 12 nests, 2 at Foy and 2 at Christchurch, and that's because both the primary and the secondary nest, the primary being the nest the queen builds in April-May on her own as a lone mother effectively. It's very small and usually quite low down, grows to about the size of a small grapefruit, and then the hornets often relocate to a secondary nest higher up in the tree. In both those cases, they had both nests in the situation, but only one queen. So that was only related to a total of 10 incursions, but 12 nests. As you can see, there is a mainly southerly distribution, I haven't got on this slide where we've had other sightings, but we've had a total of 12 other sightings. They are distributed more widely around the country, one in fact occurring up in Scotland. Incursions can occur anywhere. So far they have all been, when DNA analysed, they've all been coming from France, where it is well established, as you know. None of these have proven to be linked to each other, and I'll talk about that later on in this talk. In 2021, we had a report on the 6th of October, which came in through the Asian Hornet Watch app in the area of Ascot. We sent bee inspectors out very quickly, and it was confirmed on the 7th. The weather wasn't so good. We are getting very, very good now at the track and trace. And it took us 4 days, but that was purely because they had bad weather for a number of those days. There's an example of the track and trace map on the right hand side here, showing lines of sight of hornets returning from bait stations towards where the eventual nest was located. And we use these line of sight to triangulate in. There's a photograph here of the nest. Not very visible, but the nest in the tree, and it was found in a black poplar approximately 25 meters from the ground, and we kill using a variety of chemicals which changed over the years depending on licensing parameters, and it was killed on the 11th and removed on the 12th and taken up to the lab at Sandhurst in York to be analysed. To remove them from the tree, we use cherry pickers and tree climbers as appropriate, and you can see here on the left some of the tree climbers and bee inspectors all dressed in Asian hornet suits to protect them, and the cherry picker being used to locate the nest. And here's an example of a tree climber on the right with the nest before it's sent into the lab. We do a lot of comms during an outbreak, and this is really just a sort of classic example from Ascot. Initially, when we have the confirmed sighting, the alerts put out on the gov.uk rolling news page. Very shortly, usually within minutes after that, the Bee Health Advisory Forum, the forum of our stakeholders, is informed, and that includes the BBKA, Welsh beekeepers, and many other associations. Alert is sent out to local beekeepers who are on bee base, and local associations are contacted. We usually at the same time, though this can often be one and the same people, contact the Asian Hornet teams and their coordinators, and we also, because of all the drama that may be associated with using cherry pickers and having bee inspectors walking around in bee suits, we contact local councils and keep the police advised. And here is an example of what Bracknell Forest Council put out on their website, giving awareness to the public to be looking out for Asian hornet, and we find this very useful during an outbreak. The other part to emphasise here is this alert that goes out to local beekeepers is key. We're concentrating on finding the nests and eradicating that nest, but what we really need is all the beekeepers in the wider area to be looking out at both their hives and ivy and any other flying point for Asian hornets to help us with that wider surveillance. The nest was 35 centimetres in diameter. There was 83 adults within it, including the queen. It contained 6 combs. It had larvae, pupae, and tenural adults. These are adults just about to emerge from the cells, but there were no eggs present. A bit hard to explain, but for some reason or not, the queen had stopped laying, though she was present in the colony. There were only drones at the larval stage, which means it had got to the stage of producing sexual adults, but sexual stages, sorry, but no adults, and hadn't got to the stage of producing queens. And the queen had been mated to a single drone. We do a number of different measurements to determine whether or not it's a queen. None of these are perfect, so why we use a number of different ways. The first one is weight, and any individual over 593 milligrams wet weight is determined as being a queen. Because of the length of time of getting samples back to York, we often use dry weight because wet weight's not so reliable. We also use the tegular to tegular distance, which is the distance, if you like, effectively between the shoulder blades where the wings connect to the back of the insect. This paper by Perez de Herida shows that anything with that distance of greater than 4.5 millimeters is a queen. And the other method we can use as well is whether or not the individuals have fat bodies in the abdomens, and these will be around the ovarials. And if they are present, that's a queen, and if they aren't, as in this worker, then they're not. Portsmouth was reported on Friday 29th of October, again through the Asian Hornet Watch app. It was confirmed on site the same day and the nest found the next day. So we got very lucky, had really good weather when the inspectors arrived on site, and as you can see from the track and trace map here, they only had times to put out a few bait stations, and they got lines of sight that pointed into this area of Portsmouth, which is near the docks. And in fact, there was only one row of trees close by, so they very quickly located the nest. In this case, it was in the top of a Norway maple, approximately 20 meters from the ground, and that was killed and removed on the 31st. Portsmouth nest was 31 centimeters in diameter, contained 70 adults, 48 females and 22 males, 4 combs, and eggs, larvae, pupae and tenual adults present. No primary nest present inside, and all Asian hornets captured within the vicinity were from this nest. The queen had mated with 2 males, one of which was a diploid drone, and these are effectively inbred as a consequence of inbreeding. And an example of how this occurs is on the right hand side here. You can end up with diploid drones who share a sex determination gene, apologies. And on the left we've got the normal haplodiploidy of how a drone and a queen mate, leading to female offspring and drone offspring, and on the right an example of this involves a diploid drone. Now this is very unusual. In lots of animals, diploid drones don't survive. For example, in honeybees, diploid drones are killed as soon as they turn to the larvae stage. In Asian hornets, these can go to adulthood and they can in fact mate, and you end up with these triploidy female offspring. Problem here is that they're not, both diploids and triploids aren't active within the colony, and this Portsmouth colony had a lot of these individuals. They appear female. The triploids are infertile, and they're not known to take any active part in colony building, supporting the young or anything like that. Hence why this colony was quite small, and hence why it didn't have many normal, if you like, queens, and hence why we believe the risk of it producing any queens for the next for this season is very low. So all nests are found in September and October, and they've all been relatively small in the UK if we compare them to Jersey and nests found in France. All individuals analysed were from populations that colonised in Europe and not a new incursion from Asia. Whilst doing the track and trace, all the individuals gathered around each nest are always from that nest so far. We've never had an occasion when an individual has been possibly related to a separate nest. So that gives us quite a lot of confidence that we haven't got an established population. We've obviously only had so far the one nest, the Portsmouth one, that's reached the stage of producing queens, but they were very small and a heavily inbred colony, and very low number of viable gynns, and that is queens. So far we've had no confirmed Asian hornet nests in winter, no evidence of an established population, and we're still in the eradication phase of the contingency response. This year we've had 2 sightings. The first on the 26th of April in Felixstowe, and this was a beekeeper who runs a sentinel apiary for us. This is for other exotic pests, but they were obviously aware of Asian hornet, and their husband had knocked down an insect in the shed, and a few days later when the beekeeper entered the shed they recognised it as being Asian hornet and reported it straight away. So it was quite dried out. We could tell it was a female, but we couldn't tell if it was a queen. At that time of year, it was very highly likely to be a queen. We've done trapping in the area, but there's been no further sightings. The most recent one is in Chelmsford in Essex again on the 24th of August. This was spotted and photographed by a member of the public. No sample was collected, but we've confirmed that the photograph was taken in that area by the plants in the background. We've done trapping in the area, which is in fact carrying on now, and we're slowly handing over to the local Asian hornet teams who are continuing that monitoring for the rest of the season for us, and so far we've had no further sightings. We're doing a lot of increased awareness raising, and we would welcome everyone to join us with that. I've given a talk at the BBK Spring Convention. We're using social media around all these events. Every single one of these sightings have been on social media, and this talk and many other things are being used during Asian Hornet Week. In certain at-risk areas, we're doing county events, both forums and bee health days, and in high-risk areas like Portsmouth and surroundings, we've done talks at the local association level and at other groups such as garden clubs and like, anyone who is interested and likely to be spotting Asian hornets. This year there's been lots of developments within the MBU. We always do a lessons identified process, and within that we try to improve our systems. The most recent one is an ArcGIS app that is used by the inspectors on their iPhones or iPads, and this allows them to enter real-time data entry in the field, which immediately reports back their sightings, their lines of sight, whether or not they found the nest, to each other and to myself and other managers in the office. They can also use the maps on their phones to guide them into sightings. They record trap visits, samples and much more, and we're also moving to use barcodes for samples to make everything more efficient and useful. Keyly and absolutely critically to the continuity response is Asian hornet teams, and that is beekeepers. This is a sample photograph here from the BBK Asian hornet team page, and shows the Asian hornet team members in the south of England. This website anyone can go on to, and it's available through the BBKA site, and see where someone who would help them identify what they suspected to be an Asian hornet. They will also help us with raising awareness, helping the public beekeepers with ideas I mentioned, and during the response they are key for local knowledge and checking their own traps and hives, and as I spoke about earlier, looking at forage around the area. That wider surveillance is key to us, and I thank them for all their help. I hope you have found this informative, and please do not hesitate to contact us for further information. Thank you.